I observe this just as a citizen. Print affidavit ndonyora. So in my view, people really don't give it the seriousness, the gravity.
Yes.
We don't appreciate how serious, how important this document actually is.
It's not every document that is written affidavit on top that is an affidavit. An affidavit is constructed through a very clear and deliberate legal process where you appear before a commissioner of oaths. Take very seriously the contents of the affidavit, because if you lie under oath, you could end up in jail. So be very clear that what is being written there is exactly what you are signing for and that it's true and correct. This doesn't mean where you have a doubt, you can't say there is a doubt. You can say that I doubt this, but the thing that you are swearing to is that you doubt. Yeah. So I would say that people need to be extremely careful. They need to make sure that they're executing the affidavit before a properly authorized person.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to yet another edition of Expertly Speaking. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. Today I'm joined once again by Advocate Fortune Chasi. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Farai.
Today I want to talk about something that, we hear about very often, but as I always like to say, let's not take it for granted that people know what these things are. We're talking about affidavits and affirmations. So let's start at the beginning and say, an affidavit, what is that?
Well, basically, an affidavit refers to a sworn statement by an individual. What do we mean by a sworn statement? The person is swearing that what they are saying below, what they are signing for, is true and correct. Mm-hmm. So these affidavits are very important documents. They form a key part of court proceedings. Mm-hmm. For example, they are used to substitute viva voce evidence, in other words, evidence given by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. So the court may, in certain circumstances, accept an affidavit in place of the person coming to give evidence. As you know, in the magistrates' court, in the superior courts, in the High Court, for example, you will have two types of actions or other procedures. An action which is by way of summons, and then an application which is by way of these affidavits. Mm-hmm. That people attach and present to the court and say, this is my case. So the judge then decides based on those papers, those affidavits. So it's a very important procedure. And they are also used in other instances. For example, if somebody is injured and the doctor is called upon to give a record of what they found about the injuries, they will produce an affidavit. Otherwise, courts will be full of doctors
giving evidence
every day.
Before we get into more detail, let's look at which laws govern affidavits in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, there is a variety of laws, if I may say so. There is the law that specifically deals with the commissioners of oaths, mm-hmm. a specific act, commissioners of oaths and justices act, which says who can be a commissioner of oaths. Mm-hmm. Lawyers are, by virtue of their training and registration, officers of the court. They can be commissioners of oaths. You can have an officer in charge. These other people have to be specifically appointed. Sometimes you'll have maybe a church leader being appointed a commissioner of oaths. But you also have in the High Court statutes and rules, specific references to commissioners of oaths and the law relating to affidavits, how they must be executed and so forth.
Is there a register of commissioner of oaths? And I ask this purely because you've always made reference to lawyers. officers in charge, and those sort of people. But walking the streets downtown, you'll go into a place that photocopies and prints, and it says Commissioner of Oaths there.
Yeah, I would imagine. I haven't seen one myself. I haven't had a need to see one. But I would imagine that the specific body that is charged with appointing commissioners of oaths will have a record of this in the event that there is a public inquiry as to whether a person is a commissioner of oaths, because that is one of the grounds upon which one can say this is not an affidavit. You can't go to somebody selling newspapers on the road and ask them to commission a document, then you take it to the High Court and say, yeah. So it's possible that whoever is relying on that affidavit or has to look at the affidavit may ask, but is this a commissioner of oaths? This is not a commissioner of oaths. And, people make those stamps. They are sold in the streets. So it's conceivable that they can be abused or misused by individuals.
Okay, let's talk about affirmation, because we're obviously talking about affidavits and affirmations. What is an affirmation and how does it differ from an oath?
Well, basically, when you swear, you are basically saying, "Ndopika na Mwari wangu."
Which is no chokwadi.
Yes. But you may have an individual who is, say, an atheist, who does not believe that there's somebody called God. They may not want to swear to God that this is the position. So they then have to make a similar statement, guaranteeing that what they have said is the truth. It's still done before the correct officers that we have spoken about, but without reference to the Bible or to God. It's really about whether one believes there's God or there's no God.
Okay. Now, as I said, let's get into some of the details of affidavits. As you said, someone could challenge that this is not officially an affidavit. Under what circumstances? So perhaps in another way, what are some of the things that make an affidavit not valid?
Okay, the first one is what I've already stated. The fact that you have to appear before a commission of oaths.
Okay.
There is no alternative to that. You have to go to a lawfully appointed or recognized commissioner of oaths who must then ask you to take the oath. So if you, Farai, sign your affidavit here and then give your messenger to take it to a commissioner of oaths, you will not have taken your oath before a commissioner of oaths.
Yes.
So the document that you have produced is not an affidavit. It may appear very simple, but when you get to litigation, lawyers are very granular. Yes, they will ask you very innocent questions that may appear innocent to you. So tell me, where were you when you signed this affidavit? I was in my office. Who was with you? I was by myself. Then what happened? Then it went to the Commissioner of Oaths.
Yeah.
Then, my lord, we can't rely on this document. It's not an affidavit. You see what I mean?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So those are some of the pitfalls. You need to make sure that you have dated it. If it's a multi-page document, make sure you initial it. Why? Because if you sign just the last page, a devious character can come and remove all the preceding pages or some of them and put something else inside. If there are alterations, you must countersign them. So page 1, paragraph 2, there is something that needs to be corrected. It's cancelled. Make sure you countersign it, and the Commissioner of Oaths countersigns it, because that is evidence in court. If it goes as it is, it gives rise to to disputes. So the affidavit must show where, I've said it must be dated,
Yeah.
must show where it was signed. It must show who signed it. In other words, the designation of the Commissioner of Oaths. That's why we need those stamps.
Yes.
The designation of the Commissioner of Oaths must appear on that document.
I would also imagine the most critical, or one of the most critical, is the contents of that affidavit must actually be the truth.
Yes, that's the crux of the matter. But if court officials were to be very strict, many people would go to jail. People take the contents very lightly. So regardless of who has prepared the affidavit for you, you must read it, because it's not the person who prepared it who matters. It's you, the deponent, who is taking charge of the contents. So if there is something in there that you do not understand or that you doubt, you must make sure that the affidavit correctly reflects what you know, what you are swearing to as the correct thing.
Which then brings me to the next point. Must an affidavit be in a particular language, for instance, English, or it can be in any language as long as it meets the other criteria?
No, it can be in any language, but as you know, if it's one that is going to be used in our courts, we conduct our proceedings in the English language. But one can have their affidavit in their own language. Let's say you have Mbuya Warukudotito, to whom English is entirely foreign, particularly if it's of a technical nature. She may want to express herself in her own language. That is perfectly acceptable. Courts will have interpreters who will then talk or translate that affidavit into English.
Before we wrap up, again, to take you back, and again, I do this because we want this information to be as relevant and practical to people. If, for example, I'm required to sign an affidavit, if more people, if me and my siblings, for instance, are required, TD4, we must produce an affidavit. Must we all appear before the commissioner, or I can say,
No.
commissioner?
You cannot swear on behalf of somebody else, just like you cannot get married on behalf of somebody else.
Yeah.
So each person, even if the affidavit is exactly the same, each person will have to take an oath and sign the affidavit. They may, for one reason or another, want to sign the same piece of paper, but they must go through the same motions one by one. Each one of them must confirm that the contents of the affidavit are, in fact, true and correct. That is the wording that you will see on affidavits. True and correct. So you cannot delegate your swearing to somebody else. It's you who must do it, and you must appear before a commissioner of oaths.
Okay, before we wrap up, I think some final parting shots. I mean, affidavits are things that people interact with all the time, because a lot of the time we're required to sign them. One of the key takeaways for me, and I observe this just as a citizen. Print affidavit ndonyora. So in my view, and perhaps I'm wrong, is that people really don't give it the seriousness, the gravity.
Yes.
We don't appreciate how serious, how important this document actually is. So in closing, what would be the key?
Yes, I would say that an affidavit is a very, very important document. It's not every document that is written affidavit on top that is an affidavit. An affidavit is constructed through a very clear and deliberate legal process where you appear before a commissioner of oaths. Take very seriously the contents of the affidavit, because if you lie under oath, you could end up in jail. So be very clear that what is being written there is exactly what you are signing for and that it's true and correct. This doesn't mean where you have a doubt, you can't say there is a doubt. You can say that I doubt this, but the thing that you are swearing to is that you doubt. Yeah. So I would say that people need to be extremely careful. They need to make sure that they're executing the affidavit before a properly authorized person. Why this is important is that it may be them who want to take some action. Now, if the affidavit is then declared a nullity, then they could lose in a matter that is very, very important to them.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Advocate Chasi,
Thank you.
for breaking that down. Very important nuggets that you're sharing with us. That does it for this edition of Expertly Speaking. Join us again next time.